there was a fire in the apartment, right? It was because he was actually drying his clothes in the oven.
No, he wasn't.
Tell me,
did you like your S-Class?
Take that, you move in, you collect the rent from the 3 unit, stay in there for maybe a year or so, refinance it, move out of there, put another tenant in that unit that you were living in, and do it again. Buy another one. This is what I usually recommend for somebody who does not have any kind of experience in real estate. They want to get involved and they don't own any real estate right now. This is what I would do. I would...
If you're thinking about starting to invest in real estate, you're not going to want to miss this episode. On this episode, we talked to Aaron James, who is a proficient real estate investor. He has multiple properties under management, and he's doing fantastic. Such a fun guy to talk to. Lots of stories, lots of tips, lots of tricks, as always. So stick around. Let's go ahead and talk to Aaron James. Aaron, welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me, man.
Yeah, it's a pleasure. I'm looking forward to getting to know your journey in real estate investing a little more.
Absolutely.
And learning a little bit more about real estate investing. So how did you get into it? How did you start real estate investing? And then what were you doing before that?
Okay, so my background, I have a finance background. So I graduated with a degree from Old Dominion University in Norfolk, Virginia, and got a finance degree with a real estate minor. So I graduated in like 2008. When like at the top of the market crashed.
Yeah.
So my goal,
perfect time.
Right. So my goal was actually to go into real estate investing from there, but that never really happened because of the situation. So I had a finance degree, so I just went into finance. So I worked for a government contracting company in pricing, where I just displayed the finance. And then I always knew that I wanted to get back into real estate though. So as time went past, I saved up a little bit of money and then kind of went on the real estate investing journey from there.
Cool. So tell me about your first venture. So like what was the first listing? What was it? This episode, just like every episode, is brought to you by Visually Sold. If you're a real estate agent in the greater Atlanta area, you need professional listing photos for your listings. Visually Sold is the best solution. I'm a little biased, but it's true. A few things you need to know. We do photos, video, drone, 3D scans, and we even write your listing descriptions for you. Yes, you heard that right. We deliver everything in 24 hours, so the very next morning you'll have all of the content that you ordered. All of our photographers are employees. They're not contractors. We give them all the same exact camera equipment to use for the photo shoots, so you can expect the same great results no matter which of our team members comes to your listing. You can book your shoot on our website in under 2 minutes. Just go to our website, vs.photos. Just type that into your URL, boopily boop, vs.photos, and you can book a shoot in under 2 minutes. So thank you again to Visually Sold for sponsoring this podcast. Now let's get to the show.
Yeah. So the first thing that I did, I realized that I knew that with real estate investing, the best way to go is like with, multifamily, because you have multiple people paying you versus one person paying you. Right. So I had it was a quad for sale. It was like $215,000. It was people living in there, but I was surprised that they were living in those conditions, right? But I didn't have a whole lot of money. I think I had to put down like $35,000. I got a personal loan for the $35,000, and I used that as a down payment to buy the 4-unit property. And then over like a year's period of time, the value increased on it. I refinanced it, got my $30,000 back, still had the property. So nice. that was like the first deal that I did. And I realized like, hey man, I'm really, I got the money back and I'm in here now. I can actually like the property's paying for itself. It's paying the mortgage. Yeah. The property is paying for the personal loan that I got out on it. So, and I was still getting a little bit of cash flow on top of that. So it was a pretty good situation. And at that point I knew I had to stop everything else I was doing and really dive deep into real estate.
Wow. So what year was that first one?
That first one was 2017.
2017.
Yeah,
okay.
2017. And that was the fourplex. I felt like I bought it wrong, to be honest with you. Knowing what I know now, I wouldn't have done that.
Really?
Because, it ended up turning out good, but I realized that I could grow a lot further if I bought properties that needed to be renovated and I was getting them at, more of a discounted price,
Yeah.
right? So I kind of pivoted from that first one, and then I went into buying duplexes and quads, but that were like completely messed up. Like,
Got it.
Like,
Needed some work. Needed
right.
some love.
So the next one that I bought was like a duplex. It was for $50,000, and it needed about $50,000 worth of work.
Okay.
And it was the other duplexes in the area were going for like 200,000 now. So it was like a good deal, right?
Yeah.
But that's when I got introduced to like different type of financing, like not necessarily bank financing, hard money, private lending. And that's what really I took off from there when I learned that. So with that first deal in that world, it was like I said, 50,000 to buy, 50,000 for the renovation. I only had to put 10% down on that amount. So I had to put down $10,000 to get into this.
Wow.
And then the 50,000 was done in draws. So as you get work done, they'll give you funds to replenish the work that you get done. So I got it done. It was a process with the renovation because that was my first renovation. But we got it done. It appraised for 200,000. I refinanced it, got a check for 160, paid off the 100 that I owed on it, walked away with $60,000, and I still own the property.
Wow.
So that was when I knew that I was like, okay, I'm going in the right direction for sure now.
Yeah.
And I just like double, triple down on that.
Did you have, or I guess maybe now, people like contractors that you work with specifically, or did you do a lot of the work yourself?
I did none of the work myself.
Okay.
I'm
Cool.
not a handyman. No,
Yeah.
I'm the brains behind the operation, but I cannot swing any type of like nail, hammer, nothing. So that's not me. But I will say with the first property, I had a contractor. He wasn't the greatest, but he got the job done. And then the second property I got another contractor. This guy, and I wasn't taken advantage of, but he just did not know what he was doing. Like, and I did my due diligence. Like, I met the guy. He walked me through properties that he did, and he was like, it was like a partnership with him and another contractor. They worked together. And with the second one that I did with the renovation, I ended up it didn't turn out good. So the guy was like. He and I honestly think he meant well, but he was in partnership with another guy, and the other guy did a lot of the work, and I didn't know that. Like, I thought they, so. And when I first started my deal with him, they had a fallout. So
wow,
yeah. So
Drama.
they had a fallout.
Yeah.
And I'm working with a guy. I seen the work that he did, so I'm assuming that they did it together. I did realize that the other guy wasn't around anymore.
Yeah.
And I end up asking about it like eventually, but it just did not go well, man. So like I bought that property for it was only like 45,000. That's the good thing about it. Like I got it for so cheap that the numbers still end up working out when it messed up, right? So I got it for 45. They said they could do the renovation for 60, right?
Yeah.
So I'm like, okay, 105. And I just got off of doing the one that was 100, and it was like right in the same area. So I'm like, okay, I'm in the money. You know what I mean?
Yep.
It wasn't 60,000 to get it renovated.
Oh
it,
yeah.
It ended up being like 110,000 to get it renovated because the guy. He honestly didn't know what he was doing. And I realized that halfway through. He was like getting people to do odd ends and odd jobs. And it was in 2020, like right when COVID hit. So he was basically making excuses about like, oh, with COVID, people don't want to work. And I was believing it at first. And then eventually I'm like, man, this is not good.
Something's not right. Yeah.
And this was in Virginia, and I live in Atlanta. So I was having to go back and forth,
Okay.
Yeah. So
we're the first few properties all in Virginia?
Yep.
Okay.
Yep,
Do you have any Atlanta right now?
the only property I own in Atlanta is the one we live in. That's it.
Okay.
Yeah. So I really focus on Virginia. I'm starting to we have 30 units in Virginia. I'm starting to like look at Atlanta. I feel like Atlanta is a much more competitive market with stuff like that.
Yeah.
And a lot more bigger players in it. So it's more competition. A lot of stuff happens behind the scenes where you don't even see what's going on.
Yeah.
So Virginia, I've been really comfortable in Virginia. in with like building a team and stuff like that. But for that property that ended up like being 110 to renovate, I ended up just selling the property instead of refinancing it because I was so far into it.
Yeah.
I had 140. I paid 45 to buy it. I ended up spending 110, so it was 165. I could have refinanced it and broke even.
Yeah.
But I'm like, no, I'm gonna just sell it. So I sold it for 200. I still end up making money though.
Yep.
But it was a lesson learned.
But you lost the property itself.
Yeah, I lost I didn't have any, equity in the property after I had to walk away with everything.
Yeah. So. You could have learned that mistake harder than you did. You know what I mean? Like it could have been a lot worse, but you still got away with it. Learning that, learning who you got to figure out who you're working with, who the contractors are.
Yep.
So you learned that lesson and you didn't lose any money from it, really.
Yeah, that was a blessing, man. Because I had a renovation budget of 60.
Yeah.
I ended up spending like 45 over that or whatever that number is. So I ended up having to go and use like line of credits to like pay for it. But when I sold it, I was able to pay all that stuff back.
Yeah.
So it could have been worse. It could have been where I sold it at a loss.
Yeah.
And that would have been terrible.
It would have been. Yeah. It could have been worse. And that's So how did you go about finding the property? In the beginning, like the first one, the second one, how did you find them?
So the first one, it was just basically on MLS. So that one was basically on the MLS, and it was sitting for a while. I didn't understand why, because I kept running numbers on it. I'm like, this is not a bad deal. You know what I mean? Which something that would never happen in Atlanta. That's what I mean.
That's why I was wondering. I'm like, how are you finding these for this price, and where are they?
Yeah. So it's just a different market out there, and there's less active investors. You know what I mean? But after a while, I started to get more seasoned, and now the way I'm finding properties is through like PropStream, you know what I mean? And then I also have like a Rolodex of just wholesalers that I work with. So,
cool. Okay.
So they're finding deals. I don't have really the time to like look and find. I'll go on PropStream, but I'm not on there like all day. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But I want people that are on there all day that I have a connection with. Yeah. And they'll put their little fee on it, sell it to me. I'll take it and I'll just take it to the finish line. So that's the ideal situation.
So these duplexes and quads that you have, do you have management companies that manage the rentals themselves? And okay.
Yeah, so I have property management in place now, and it started off as my real estate agent, and she realized that I was just buying so many properties. She was like, you know what, I'm gonna start managing the property so I can service you in both areas.
Oh,
you know
smart.
what I mean?
Smart.
So now she's managing all of our properties as well, and I mean it goes well. It's a seamless situation where I'm working with like one person. She has a team of people, but working with her and to have everything serviced. So
cool. That's cool. It's somebody you already knew, already had a relationship with.
Yep.
Could trust.
Yep. Yeah, especially being out of town. Being out of town investing it definitely has to be a level of trust there. You know what I mean? Because especially with property management, because I've read horror stories about people like, oh, they're not paying their rent or no one's in there, and if you don't live there,
it's hard.
You don't know for sure.
Yeah.
But yeah, she's pretty trustworthy. You know what I mean? So
cool.
Yeah.
That's perfect. So for somebody that's like thinking about getting into real estate investing, what are some things that they should keep in mind or that you think that they should know to start?
I think one of the biggest things is credit. Like your credit has to be strong, because I've done all of the real estate investing with like really creative financing. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But you're not going to be able to get the financing that I get, like with a line of credit. Like I have a line of credit with like hundreds of $1,000s that I can just pull from that's not even like attached to an asset now.
Right.
And that would never happen without really strong credit. You know what I mean? And then it's just so many like small things. Obviously credit is one of them, but I feel like you really need to educate yourself as well. Like, because there's a lot of people that are waiting to take advantage of you if you don't educate yourself. And I just want to plug that I started like a course is for real estate investors, beginners though. So I mean, it's teaching you everything from like how to find a property on PropStream, like I talked about, like how to fund a property. Like you can go through a bank, but you also can go through commercial, banks, or you can go through hard money lenders, private lenders, line of credits. Like it's basically giving you the rundown on how I use all of those different things, right?
Wow, okay.
And then it talks about property management, like what you just kind of alluded to.
Yeah.
Like when do I use property management? How do I use them in the different ways I can use them? Like short-term rentals, their fee is a lot higher on short-term rentals than it is on long-term rentals. And just kind of talking about that in detail, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So the course is basically like it's like a cheat sheet for getting started if you don't know anything, right? And it's basically just me talking for like a couple of hours, you know, and with like power presentations, and I give my contact list out, you know, I give my property calculator out, you know, showing basically how I evaluate deals and if I feel like it's a good deal or if it's a deal that you need to run away from. So,
man, that sounds like a lot of value. Like that's like they can basically, they're taking what you had to learn, like, and just go look at, you know, different resources, different, you know, education platforms and everything, and you're sort of consolidating it all into one spot.
Yeah.
And just like, hey, do this and you'll know exactly what to do step by step.
That was the goal, man. Because we get a lot of people, because I try to share, my wife is like on top of me for like sharing my journey, right?
Yeah.
I'm not the most like extroverted person.
Sure.
So I kind of struggle with that a little, but I'm trying to share more of my journey. And as I share the journey, I realize that like there's so many people in my DMs asking me questions like, how do you do this? How do you get a loan for that? And then some of the questions I just realized that they just don't understand how it really works. You know what I mean? And I wish I had the time to really sit down with every person and explain it. But I felt like the course was a way to kind of hit more people, you know, with trying to give them the information, because it's really possible. Like I come from very humble background, you know what I mean? And I was able to, you know, like have multi-million-dollar real estate portfolio. Yeah. And it was really from like trial and error learning along the way. But like I realized that, you know, it's really the sky's the limit with it.
For sure. Yeah. Especially if you put your mind to it and you really stick to it and really, like if you know where you want to be and then you start working towards that little bit by little bit.
Yep.
Just like you did. I mean, you're proof that it can happen, you know?
Yeah, man. I'm trying to get that message out there, right?
Yeah.
That it is really possible. And it's not as hard as you would think. I feel like after you close on your first property, whether it's a property to live in or investment property, I think it gives you like that boost. Like it's possible, you know what I mean? It's scary at first, you know what I mean? Going with the lawyers and closing table and agents that are really educated and know a lot more and been there holding your hand through it. But as you get through it, you realize that, you know, this can be duplicated. I think the biggest barrier to entry a lot of the time is understanding financing, though, and understanding that a lot of people think that, you know, you have to put 20% down to buy a property. You know what I mean?
Right.
You don't necessarily have to do that. Like there's ways around that, right? You can do FHA, you know, 3.5% down, and then even doing that on a multifamily, you can do that up to 4 units. That's a real way to get into the real estate investing, you know, area without having a whole lot of money. You know what I mean? And then being able to refinance and cash out is a powerful tool to be able to roll from property to property and really build a portfolio. And that's basically what I did.
Wow. Do you have? I'm guessing. Do you have any like stories, like horror stories, like things that you've learned, that things have happened that you could share that you're comfortable sharing?
Yeah. So there's a couple. The biggest one was the contractor that I just told you about. Yeah. I feel like, you know, vetting people is a really strong part about being successful. Yeah. But also like in the, you know, in the realm of vetting people is the tenants that you have in place, right? Like, so for property management, they vet tenants, you know, but it's really difficult to know exactly what you're going to get until they get in there, you know? So I have a situation now where we have a tenant in place. This guy, he's an interesting guy. Let's just say that. Sure. So he there was a fire in the apartment, right? And this is my 6 unit. So there's 6 families that live in there. There was a fire in the apartment. He didn't even call like the fire department. He put the fire out, but he never called the fire department, and like, you know, the electricity was like messed up, you know what I mean? Oh no. And it was because he was actually drying his clothes in the oven.
No, he wasn't.
He was drying his clothes in the oven, and it caused the fire. He put the fire out, and then he just kind of went on like nothing happened. And then the tenant next door, the tenant next door was like, you know, something's not right over there. She could smell the smoke and stuff, right? So she called a property manager. And then the property manager got out there and she's like, Aaron, you're not gonna want to hear like this. You're not gonna like this. And I'm like, oh, what is it? I think somebody not paying rent, you know? No, it's like she told me what happened. I'm like, oh my God. So, you know, I got videos of the place. I may put them up eventually.
Yeah.
Like just smoked out. It was like grit all over the walls. And it was like he was still living in there like it was nothing. He had no furniture in the place. No furniture. He had one chair and he was sleeping on the floor. So I'm like, man, this guy, I don't think he's like mentally like stable to be staying in an apartment. And he was a veteran. So he came through, and I try to work with like Section 8 tenants and veteran tenants. And, you know, there's like a company that works with veteran tenants that helps them pay their bills, and they get checks from the government. So they just pay me directly. It's like a form of Section 8, but it's like but a lot of those people are not like fit to live alone. You know what I mean? Yeah. So that's a situation I'm going through, and I'm trying to like help place him in an area, you know, or in a situation that would be better for him. Yeah. But you know, it's an uphill battle. He's still in the property now, so I had to get the property renovated again. And I put him in a hotel to do that, but he wouldn't leave. So he was in the house while it was getting renovated. This was as of like yesterday.
Yeah. So what can you do to, like, what have you learned from that situation as far as vetting goes? Like what are some things that you could look at, different factors that might weigh heavier than others now because of that kind of thing?
Yeah, I think that we knew that, you know, he was coming from a situation like it was veteran, and he may have been a little bit of a situation there. I don't want to completely turn my back on that, you know, that demographic. Right. But I think that I won't be the first person to take a chance on them. You know what I mean? Yeah. I think from here on out, what I would do is see, okay, what was their living situation before? You know what I mean? Like, did they have an apartment where they were living on their own before? Yeah. Or are they coming from some type of institution or something like that into the apartment? If they're coming from an institution into the apartment, I don't want to be the guinea pig on them. You know what I mean? I want to be able to confirm that they were okay in a situation where they were living by themselves before they came to my place. Because not only is it because I want to protect my place, I want to protect the other tenants that are in the place as well. You know what I mean? Because if that, God forbid, if that was like a serious fire and it just burned down the entire building, it could have been people who lost their lives. You know what I mean? So that's a responsibility that I feel like as a property owner, you take as well with the type of tenants that you put in place.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, the vetting is so important, you know. But then again, I mean, things will slip through the cracks. Things happen, might look good on paper, you know, it might look good as far as, but you just don't know, you know. I mean, you're working with people. People can be unpredictable.
Yeah, and people change too. So you never know.
Yeah. Yep. Very true. So I want to go back a little bit. At what point did you move to Atlanta? How long have you been here?
I actually lived in Atlanta before I bought my first property in Virginia. So so I graduated from college in 2009 and I moved out here in 2010. Okay. So I've been living out here for a while. And it's funny because when I graduated from college, I was like, you know what? I'm going to move to Atlanta because the real estate is cheaper there. And I'm going to, you know, like build a real estate empire. Yeah. And at that time, it may have been a little bit cheaper, but now, man, real estate here is way more expensive than back home. Yeah. So now I moved here to buy real estate, but then I'm buying the real estate back home. So it's crazy. But I wouldn't leave Atlanta. I much rather live here than in Virginia for sure.
What's been your favorite part about living in Atlanta?
Man, it's the motivation. Like, you see so many people that are like on their journey. Like being in your studio right now is like, this motivating because I know that that started with an idea, then it turned into action, then it turned into putting it in place, and now look, we're sitting here. You know what I mean? Yeah. Like, people in Atlanta are like real movers and shakers. Like, they really make things happen. And I feel like surrounding yourself with people that are making things happen it level sets your expectation to make things happen for yourself. And I feel like here is no other place that I can think of. Maybe, of course, like Miami, LA, you know
Yeah,
what I mean?
yeah.
But like Atlanta is like, it gives you like big city and small city feel.
Yep.
And it also, there's a lot of people here that are doing like amazing things. You know what I mean?
sure.
So it keeps me motivated just going out and seeing the different cars, or seeing, you know, the real estate, and, you know, just the people that are just that are successful here. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's motivating, and I love to be around it.
That's a huge factor for sure. I mean, you're the sum of the 5 people you spend the most time with.
Absolutely.
Your environment, your surroundings, the people you surround yourself with,
Absolutely,
impact you a lot. You know, your outlook on it, and you also, what's that other saying? You don't want to be. It's good to be the dumbest person in the room.
Absolutely.
You know what I mean? Like
they'll pull you up.
Like, yeah, you want to surround yourself with people who are better than you. Not
Right.
like you don't want to be the best around. You know what I mean? Like that's because you know you always want to be looking forward and looking up to elevate yourself for sure.
Absolutely.
So I saw you have an S class.
Yep.
How long have you had it?
I just got it.
Okay.
Yeah, I got it like a month ago.
Cool.
Yeah, it was like, man, it was like, it was always something that I wanted to get.
Yeah.
And then as I build up in real estate, I'm like, God, I could really go get it now. But
Yeah.
I'm like, nah, I'll buy more real estate. I'll buy more real estate. I
Yeah.
keep saying that. And then my wife is like, you gotta be able to do other stuff too. You
Yeah.
gotta kind of, you know, like reward yourself for something that, you know, for what you've done. So I'm like, you know what? Today I'm gonna just go and do it. You
Sweet.
know?
Are you
Yeah.
loving it?
Man, am I? Well,
I really didn't need to ask.
I'm trying to find places to
Tell
go
me,
just
did
to
you
drive.
like your S class?
I'm just trying to find places to go now, man. I'm
Yeah.
like, yeah, I got it. I'm just trying to find places to go just so I can drive it.
Yeah, they're sweet. They're awesome.
Yeah.
Cool, man. So, all right. So we talked a little bit about, you know, somebody who's wanting to start in real estate investing.
Mm-hmm.
I love that you have the course for them to, if they want to just learn everything, boom. What's something from that you could maybe pick and touch on and like sort of highlight? What's one thing that, like one focus area that they should really put their attention in if they're wanting to start?
Okay, I would say understanding financing, like because
Financing.
yeah. So, you know, I kind of talked about this a little bit, but I'll go in more detail, right? So, so strategy and financing, because depending on what strategy you have in real estate, it really will depend on what type of financing works best, right?
Yeah.
I would say this is what I usually recommend for somebody who does not have any kind of experience in real estate. They want to get involved and they don't own any real estate right now. This is what I would do. I would get with a lender, get with a real estate agent, get approved for FHA mortgage, right? And I will find a 4-unit apartment complex, like the small fourplex. So the biggest thing that you can get with an FHA loan, you only have to put 3.5% down. They'll allow you to get approved with the rent that's coming from the other 3 units, and you can live in 1 unit for free. That's what I would do. And then you can do that loan through, you know, your neighborhood bank. You know what I mean? Take that, you move in, you collect the rent from the 3 units, stay in there for maybe a year or so, refinance it to your more traditional. You should have some equity in it by then, right? Refinance it to your more traditional, like conventional loan, but something that doesn't necessarily have to have 20% equity, but maybe, you know, like fit 10 or, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And then move out of there, put another tenant in that unit that you were living in, and do it again. Buy another one. You know what I mean? In 3 years, you could have 8 units.
Yeah.
And you could have 7 people paying you. And you were out of pocket 3.5% on the first property. And that first property will pay for the second property. And you can keep rolling that like that if that's what you choose to do.
And then you're building wealth at that point because you're building assets.
Absolutely. You're building assets, but not only are you building assets, you're building assets that other people are paying for.
Yeah.
That's where the real value in real estate is. Because like if you get into the stock market, you only can buy as much stock as how much money you have, right? But if you get into real estate, you could have $10,000 and you can buy $100,000 property. So that means you're controlling $100,000 with $10,000. So that's only 10% equity or 10% investment to control, you know, 90,000 on the other end. You can't do that in anything else. And so it's the power of leverage It's the power of appreciation.
Yeah.
It's the power of the pay down of the loan from other people. It's the tax benefits. Man, it's so much stuff that you can do. And honestly, I feel like I'm living for free now. Like,
yeah,
I'm living in a house I want to live in. I'm driving the car I want to drive. And I'm not really paying for any of that stuff.
Right,
like
right.
my tenants are paying.
Right.
Which is powerful. But I feel like most people just don't know where to start.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And I feel like the start is understanding funding. And I feel like the easiest thing is the FHA. You know what I mean? And then I think from there you can get into, your more difficult funding, like your hard money or private. But even them, once you do one, you realize they're not that hard either. You know what I mean? But that's what I would say. Like, if I would go FHA, I would buy a multifamily for sure.
Yeah.
And then and realize that this is not your end goal. Like, people don't want to live in those because they're like, oh, that's not my dream house. But yeah, if you can afford your dream house right off the back, then you started too late anyway.
Then it's not a dream house.
Right. Exactly. You either started too late or you need to be dreaming bigger.
Yeah.
One or the other.
Yeah. Right.
So, but that's what I would say.
Cool. So, have you experimented at all with short-term rentals like Airbnbs, things like that? Have you done any of that?
So my wife, she did a little of it. I'm not a big fan of short-term rental.
Really? Why?
Yeah, because I feel like, so a lot of the times with the short-term rentals, the way that they sell is like, you don't have to own the property. You know what I mean? You could lease the property and then it just creates a situation where, first of all, you have to find someone that allow you to do that, which is not that easy. Right. And then a lot of people do it in properties they're not supposed to do it in.
Oh, yeah.
And then you end up having to pay to get out of it.
Yeah.
It just creates a situation where, it's risky. And then not only that, like you're up against hotels. The city really loves the hotels because they're making money off of it. So you see like laws coming into place to try to box you out from doing it. I mean, it could be very lucrative. If I did it, I would do it with properties that I actually own. You know what I mean? Versus renting and then like subleasing.
Sure.
But we did my wife did. I helped her out with doing one, and it was not a good experience.
Really?
Yeah. I'd rather do the long term and not necessarily maximize on the amount of rent you can have coming in versus, Airbnb or what have you. But, long term, man, you're paying down that mortgage. You're really building wealth over time. You know what I mean? It may not be as lucrative as far as how much rent you have coming in, but as far as building wealth, definitely.
Interesting. Yeah. Where was the one that you experimented with?
It was in Atlanta.
It was in Atlanta?
Yeah, it was actually in, what's that? Where the Braves played Battery.
Yeah.
We had an apartment there
that
we was like subleasing. It was always rented out.
Yeah.
And we were making money.
That's a good location to do it.
Yeah, we were making money until they realized that we were doing that. And then, they were like, nah, y'all got to get out of here.
You got to leave. Yeah.
She's like, don't talk about that.
Yeah.
It's over now.
Yeah, right. Dang, yeah. I mean, I think definitely if you own the property and it's like a mountain cabin or something like that, it could be.
Yeah, that's what I was gonna say. So, like, what we're focusing on now, I haven't even like said this to anyone. You're like one of the first people. My wife and I, we talked about it. So I was on a call the other night with some developers in Punta Cana. So what I'm looking to do now is short term, but like international short term. Yeah. So like buying like the new construction out there, it's not expensive, man. No. It's not that expensive. The only thing about it is that the funding out there is crazy. Like you have to have like 50% down. You know what I mean?
Wow. Okay.
And you like 50% down, and then you get like 2 years to pay as they're constructing it, but then it has to be paid off at the end. You know what I mean? Or they have banks, but their banks will only like fund like I think like 40% of whatever it is, and they'll cut that check at the end. So you have to pay up until that point. But as far as like the amount of traffic that comes through, it's crazy. Like it stays rented out all the time. And then it's like an international client. Like you get a lot of people that come from Europe to stay there for like a month. You know what I mean? And then you obviously get people from US to come there over the summertime. That could be extremely lucrative. And then not only that, it's a place for you to go with your family.
Exactly. I was thinking that. And it's already paid for.
That's someone else is paying for.
Yeah.
So that's what we're looking into now. So we're looking at potentially going in and getting a property over there.
That's cool. Well, and you already have experience with doing long distance sort of property management or owning properties that are longer distance than, in your state. So you're kind of...
So it doesn't scare me.
It's not a big leap.
It's a little different, but I mean, it's a flight away. You know what I mean? Just like Virginia. The only difference is just understanding their funding. I told you, I feel like with the real estate investing, the financing part, if you can get that down, man, the other stuff will come. You know what I mean? The money, where the money goes, that's what actually makes stuff happen. You know what I mean?
Yeah, for sure.
The funding in Punta Cana in Dominican Republic is definitely unique.
Yeah.
But I mean, we're talking about properties that they're really nice properties, and they're only like 115, 120,000. So it's like, well, I just put more than that down on my last property.
Right.
So,
Exactly. Right. Yeah.
So
what funding? Yeah.
Yeah. Exactly.
Yeah. I mean, I think. Yeah, I think that's it's a really cool adventure to start that. What's something else that you're like? Where do you see yourself going in the next 5-ish years? Like, what are your goals there?
So I'm going straight commercial now. So I've learned that I don't necessarily tell this to people that are just starting out because I know that it's a learning curve. But I started with duplexes, quads, then I moved to a 6-unit, then I did 12 unit, I had 8 units. So now I realize that the forced appreciation on a commercial property, we're talking a whole nother level of money. With your residential properties or a 4-unit property, your property is only worth what the comps are in the neighborhood, right?
Yeah.
So you can't make it more than that, right? Yeah. But with, commercial properties, you raise the rent. So I'll give you an example. I bought the 12 unit and the rents were $600 a month, right? Way under. The guy owned the place for 20 years. He never increased the rent. It's over the last 10 years, he never increased.
Wow.
But I mean, it wasn't in the greatest shape either, right? So I bought the property and I renovated the property. And I went up on the rent. So a lot of the tenants, they moved out. Some of the tenants stayed and moved into the renovated apartments. So they moved from one apartment to another. But the rents went to what the market rents were. And so it went from, and they vary between $1,000 to $1,050, right? But that $400 some odd per month in each unit, that adds up, right?
Yeah. So
you're talking about $400 times 12, so 12 units times 12 for the year, right?
Yeah.
So those numbers, round numbers, with that renovation, and I did some other stuff too. So I transferred, he was paying the water bill. I made it so that they would pay the water bill.
Yeah.
I just got the property just more efficiently, as far as financial. But the renovation and then the efficiencies, what I did as far as the rent collected, the property value went from $900,000 to $1.7 million.
Wow.
Yeah. So, and it's just because of the amount of money that came to the bottom line,
Right.
So I increased the net operating income. It exponentially increases the value of the property. And that's just with a 12 unit, you know what I mean? So I added $600,000 or $700,000 to the value. Just think if that was 100 units, you know what I mean?
Yeah. Oh yeah.
That's where I'm trying to go.
Yeah.
So I'm going in the direction of just commercial properties,
cool.
Residential, but commercial in the sense that it's 5 units or more.
Yeah. And
I want to my next thing I'm trying to tackle is maybe a 25, 30 unit. And I just want to keep snowballing it from there.
Keep it going.
Yep.
Yeah. Cool. What's the one thing that you think is most important that you update when you go and renovate something? What's something that you think makes the biggest difference?
Absolutely. So bathrooms and kitchens for sure.
Yeah.
So I do the same thing on every renovation. So I do the laminate LPV flooring. Yeah. That's waterproof.
Yep.
Because the tenants in there, they don't care about my place, right?
Yep.
They'll put water on the floor. They'll do whatever. I got to make sure I'm protected there, right?
Smart.
I'm going to do granite countertops because I know that they'll put a hot, a hot mug on the, you know what I mean, and burn through it. So the granite will be able to withstand that, right?
Yeah.
I usually, new cabinets, I do stainless steel appliances because people like the way it look.
Yep.
It gives more of a rich look.
Yep.
You know what I mean? I try to usually tile out the bathrooms. Depends on the situation though. But I like to tile out the bathrooms, the floors, and the showers.
Yeah.
And then, you know, other than that, just LP feed throughout.
Yeah.
And it's simple. Could get in and get out. The same stuff. So my contractor knows. Like, he's doing the same thing no matter where we are.
It's a process now. It's a system.
It's quick. Like, within a week and a half, you should be done. You know? And we do them all like that, and then we get in and get out, and we get tenants in. So,
Sweet.
you know.
Sweet. And I'm noticing a little theme in that is durable, but good looking.
Exactly.
Right? So like
I don't want to go cheap, like, because you could go cheap and they won't be waterproof, but then you're gonna have to replace it. You know what I mean? Or if you put,
it's gonna get damaged.
The laminate countertops on top of it, they're gonna put a hot pot on it, and the next person that goes into it is gonna have a big circle on. You know, you're gonna have to replace it. So instead of having to keep replacing the same stuff over and over again, this stuff is more durable. It lasts longer, and the tenants, it gives them a feeling of like pride, because they're getting something that they normally wouldn't have. Because I'm putting that in like Section 8, you know what I mean, and at price points that are still competitive, but it's better, you know, finishes. You know what I mean? It's not necessarily quartz or anything like that, but it's good enough that, you know, I feel like it'll be able to last, and it gives the person in there a little bit of pride that they're staying in something that's nice.
Yeah. Do you have like a go-to paint color?
It's usually gray, like agreeable gray.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Yeah. It's funny though, because we put a video on TikTok. I just started TikTok like recently, and the first video I put up there, man, like went viral. Like it was like almost 1 million views, right? And it's funny because I'm reading the comments, and people are so funny, man. The guy was like, it was a girl. She was like, man, I'm so tired of this gray. Everybody, these gray floors, these gray walls. Everybody just using gray. I'm like, they were like, why are you using gray? And I respond, I'm like, because I bought a whole bunch of it. I'm like, once I get through everything I bought, maybe I'll switch colors.
Also, to that commenter, good news. You don't have to paint your house that way. You know,
right?
Good news. It's not yours.
Right. It's just for me. Exactly.
Man, that's funny. Yeah. So did you do so tell me about that TikTok that went viral. What about it made it viral? Was it like a sort of a before and after, kind of like a process of renovation? Or?
I think it was just more so. I think we did show before and after. So it was basically showing the 12 unit that I was just talking about. Okay. It showed like the before pictures of the outside. Then it showed like the inside being renovated, like how it looked before and how it looked after. And it was, man, they were messed up. Like I said, they were paying $600. Some of those people have lived in there for like 15 years.
Oh, yeah.
With no rent increases. They did not care. Like, you know what I mean? Yeah. So we showed like the before and after, and a lot of people were just like, they were giving us critiques on what could have been done better.
Everyone's so helpful in the comments.
Yeah, I mean, you know, everyone has an opinion, but they didn't have the money to get it updated.
Right.
So, you know, I'm like, I would do it, but you know, I had a budget. You know what I mean? If I had an unlimited budget, I would do it. I would knock it down and just build a skyscraper. You know, but you know, we're working with a budget here.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, you're like, I've thought about this already. I've kind of figured this out. Like, done it a little bit. Appreciate it though. But.
Exactly.
Cool. Well, Aaron, it's been awesome getting to know you and getting to learn more about the real estate investing side of things. Where can people go to find you? Where do you want to point people to? Yeah, so my Instagram is Aaron James and then 4 underscores. There's a lot of Aaron James out there. And then on TikTok, it's AJames_36. Cool. So you can reach me. And what's your course called, and where can people find that? Yeah, the course is Couple of Hustlers. So it's coupleofhustlers.com. And again, it's like for beginners, man. It's like if you don't know anything, you can go to that course and you can learn a whole lot, you know what I mean, just to get started. And then definitely be a part of a community as well, you know what I mean? And I'm definitely trying to drop gems in there whenever I can. And you have access to me to, you know, be able to give information on what I would do if I was in a specific situation. So I just want to give back and, you know, like help people. Stacking that value on that. That's awesome. Absolutely. Cool. Thanks for coming on, man. It was awesome. Thanks for having me, man. Yeah, my pleasure. If you or anybody you know wants to be on the show, just send us a DM on Instagram, Visually Sold. It's at Visually Sold on Instagram. Other than that, we'll see you on the next episode. Take care.